A long time ago, in the Valley of Elah, two great armies faced each other. On one side stood the Philistines, powerful, feared warriors. And on the other side were the Israelites, God's chosen people, but in that moment, they were terrified. Between them stood a man whose very presence struck fear into everyone's heart. His name was Goliath, a giant, over 9 feet tall, wrapped in heavy bronze armor that glinted in the morning sun. His spear alone was as tall as a lamppost, and its tip weighed more than most men's swords. Every morning and every evening, for 40 days straight, Goliath stepped out from the Philistine camp and shouted into the valley, "Choose one man to fight me. If he kills me, we'll be your servants. But if I kill him, you'll serve us." And every time his voice echoed across the valley, the men of Israel trembled. Even King Saul, their leader, had no courage to face him. No one moved, no one spoke. Their faith was overshadowed by fear. Meanwhile, far from the battlefield, a young shepherd boy named David was tending to his father's sheep in Bethlehem. He was the youngest of 8 sons, the one nobody paid much attention to. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't strong or tall, but he had something more powerful than any sword or armor, a deep trust in God. One day, his father Jesse called him and said, "Take this food to your brothers at the battlefield, and bring me word of how they're doing." So David left the sheep with a caretaker and set out early the next morning. When he arrived, the armies were lining up, shouting their war cries. The air was tense, and just as David reached his brothers, Goliath stepped out again, mocking, cursing, defying Israel and their God. David froze, listening. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. And what shocked him most wasn't Goliath's words, it was Israel's silence. No one dared to challenge the giant. David turned to the men around him and asked, "Who is this man that dares to insult the armies of the living God?" The soldiers laughed. They told him to be quiet. Even his own brother snapped at him, saying, "Why are you here? Go back to your sheep." But David didn't back down. He said, "Is there not a cause?" He couldn't understand how everyone could stand there, afraid, when the living God was on their side. Word of this bold young boy reached King Saul, and soon David was standing before the king himself. Saul looked him up and down, a teenager, barely grown. "You can't fight him," Saul said. "You're just a boy. He's been a warrior since his youth." But David answered calmly. "When I kept my father's sheep," he said, "a lion and a bear came and took a lamb from the flock. I went after them and struck them down. The same God who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." Something in David's eyes convinced Saul. Maybe it was his courage. Maybe it was his faith. Whatever it was, the king agreed. He offered David his own armor, a helmet, a sword, a heavy coat of bronze. David tried walking in it but could barely move. He smiled and shook his head. "I can't fight in this. I'm not used to it." So he took it off and went out with what he knew best, his shepherd's staff, his sling, and 5 smooth stones he picked from a nearby stream. Then David walked out to meet the giant. The armies on both sides held their breath. The boy looked so small, walking alone into the open field, while the giant towered over him like a mountain. When Goliath saw him, he laughed out loud. "Am I a dog, that you come at me with sticks?" he shouted. He cursed David by his gods and said, "Come here, boy. I'll feed your flesh to the birds." But David's voice didn't shake. He shouted back, "You come to me with a sword and a spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, whom you have defied. Today, the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." The crowd went silent. Even Goliath stopped laughing. Then David reached into his bag, pulled out a single stone, and placed it in his sling. He began to swing it, faster and faster, until the air itself seemed to whistle. And then, with one final motion, he released it. The stone flew through the air, silent, swift, precise, and struck Goliath right in the center of his forehead. The giant's smile vanished. His eyes went blank. And then, with a thunderous crash, Goliath fell face down to the ground. The entire battlefield froze. No one moved for a moment. Then David ran forward, picked up Goliath's massive sword, and with one stroke, ended the battle. The Philistines screamed in terror and fled. The Israelites, who had been hiding moments ago, now shouted in victory and chased them away. And that day, a shepherd boy, the one nobody expected, became a hero of Israel. But the truth is, the real victory wasn't in the stone. It wasn't even in David's aim. The victory was in his faith. Everyone else saw a giant too big to fight. David saw a giant too big to miss. He wasn't confident in himself. He was confident in God. And that made all the difference. This story isn't just about a boy and a giant. It's about fear and faith, doubt and courage, the seen and the unseen. Because the truth is, we all face giants. Sometimes they're not people, sometimes they're problems, failures, addictions, fears, or insecurities. They may look bigger than us. But just like David, when we stand in faith, when we trust that God is greater than what we face, giants still fall. David's story reminds us that victory doesn't come from strength, or skill, or weapons. It comes from believing that the battle isn't ours, it's God's. So whatever giant you're facing today, remember this. You don't need to be the strongest. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need faith, and the courage to step into the valley, knowing you're not alone. Because when God is with you, even the biggest giants fall. Thanks for watching Story Voltage. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more powerful Bible stories told in a way that's easy to understand. See you in the next story.